Hi, and welcome back to Positive Psychology. We're going to look at positive relationships. Now, across the lifespan, well being, physical and mental health, and longevity are enhanced by good relationships. Humans have evolved to be able to form good relationships because they were essential for survival. Relationships buffer people from stress by providing social support, facilitating attainment of goals that require cooperation of others, and creating the context for a range of positive experiences. Now, these positive experiences, these can include attachment. Remember the attachment styles? We'll review that a little bit again this week. Kindness, meaning in life, capitalization, and forgiveness. Now, in this week, part 1, we're going to look at relationships and these primary processes that bring together well-being and positive social relationships. Okay, now, relationships offer great benefits, and you probably are fully aware. Excuse me. Positive relationships with friends, family, colleagues, and the wider community lead to greater well-being, mental health and physical health, accomplishments at work and in sports, resilience when recovering from serious illnesses, and longevity. We just live longer when we are among others. Now, of course, relationships are not new to humanity. It's been around since humans have been around. From the evolutionary perspective, the capacity to make and maintain close relationships was adapted for our prehistoric ancestors. Basically, those who formed relationships survived because they could. Mates form families and tribes, obtain food, build safe dwellings, protect themselves from predators and enemies. Those who could not form relationships could not do these things, so they did not survive, essentially survival of the fittest. Now, in more contemporary societies, there are 3 mechanisms that link well-being and relationships. 1 is support. In close relationships, we obtain social support. 2 is cooperation. At work, in sports, and at home, relationships help us cooperate when doing tasks that can't be done alone. Makes sense. And then 3, positive experiences. Relationships provide a context for love or attachment, empathy, altruism, kindness, meaning in life, active, constructive responding to capitalizing and forgiveness. Now, some of those we're going to revisit as we get on. So let's turn our head towards the process mentioned in, the process mentioned in the intro, and we're going to begin with the social support. Now, social support, as I mentioned earlier, supportive relationships buffer us from stress. With supportive relationships with the support of relationships from individuals, we can better recover and the quality of our life following major illnesses, including cancer, heart attack, and stroke. Fewer depressive symptoms when coping with chronic stress. Fewer PTSD symptoms in the aftermath of life-threatening stresses. And of course, longevity. In a meta-analysis of 50 different studies involving over 100,000 people in 17 different countries, Aaron Shore found that people with low levels of social support were 11% more likely to die prematurely than those who had adequate social support. Social support counteracts the negative effects of stress by affecting the way we think and feel and our physiological state. When we talk with someone we are close to, who empathizes with our stressful situation, thinking, we put our difficulty in perspective. There's the feeling. We feel understood, less isolated, a more positive effect in our physiological state. Our heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol levels all gradually return to normal, and the immune systems function better. Now, within the context of relationships, we have a concept that we can introduce by Barbara Fredrickson that's called Love 2.0, moments of connection. Now, the Love 2.0 is a term that was coined, as I said, by Barbara Fredrickson. We've heard from her before, for brief moments of positive social connection that enhance well-being. By broadening thought-action repertoires, remember that, TARS, and creating opportunities for building lasting resources. Now, as I mentioned just a moment ago, this is an extension of her broaden and build theory discussed in Chapter 1. So, for example, you meet a colleague in the corridor at work. You smile at each other. A brief joke about an email that was circulated to all staff that morning about not wasting time talking in the corridors. During Love 2.0 moments of connection, positive emotion is shared, mutual care is expressed, behavioral synchrony occurs between two people's actions where they seem to mirror one another's gestures. This is also known as rapport. Biological synchrony occurs between certain neurobiological processes, an overlap between areas of both the individual's brains that become particularly active, and their oxytocin waves also synchronize. Now, as a reminder, oxytocin is a hormone that regulates the calm and connect response. Positivity resonance occurs where each person amplifies the positive emotional experience of the other and the impulse to express care. Positivity resonance is more likely to occur when both people feel safe, are present in the same physical place at the same moment in time, rather than interacting, virtually, for example. They're making eye contact. They may even be touching, maybe their hands touch, or they're mirroring gestures. Now, this above experience is very much like the interpersonal concept I mentioned earlier called rapport. That the dialogue you may have had with someone where you seem to mirror each other's gestures and feel like time just went by super fast. Now, consider trying box 8.1. A loving kindness meditation. It's in your text. I've posted that where you got your syllabus and your assignment. I've put two different videos there. One is the mindfulness video and the other is a loving kindness meditation. Now, cooperation. Relationships that are cooperative can make possible things that we may not be able to do by ourselves. And in doing so, there are benefits to the relationship's cooperation. They include, you can achieve big goals. Cooperative relationships make it possible to perceive big goals that would otherwise not be achievable without the help of others. Cooperative relationships improve the efficiency of parenting teams. Better children can be resulting of that, and from better children of parents who cooperate effectively with each other have greater well-being. They're happier and have better academic achievement. What about better organizations? Well, in work teams, colleagues who cooperate are productive, return better profits, and engage in high-quality communication in which trust is a central feature. Better sports performance. Sports teams that cooperate perform better and win more competitions. Cooperation is important when humans work together. Attachment being the third. Relationship habits. People have habitual ways of interacting with others within important relationships. Attachment theory is currently the most influential explanation of this phenomenon. Now, as you remember, we've chatted about this guy already, John Bowlby of the UK, developed the attachment theory to explain how children exposed to different parenting experiences develop distinctive styles for interacting with their parents, and for that matter, other important people in their lives. Secure attachments develop in children whose parents regularly meet their needs in predictable ways. They trust that their parents will be available for them when they need to provide them with some safety and security. Insecure attachments develop if parents fail to do this. Evolution and attachment. Well, the attachment behavior is genetically programmed, essential for survival of the species, and elicited in children between the ages of 6 months and 3 years when faced with danger. Essentially, when in proximity to us we see some danger, in such instances, children seek the proximity of their parents. A stranger approaches you and yourself and your child cowers towards you because they don't recognize the stranger. The stranger represents, to some degree, an element of danger. So they retreat to you. That's an example where they're exploring. Then when they're comforted, they return to the activity of exploring the immediate environment around them. So the parent can really be important to developing that child's ability. Repetition, well, the cycle repeats every time the child perceives a threat, and a child gradually builds an internal working model or a map of attachment relationship based on the way these episodes of management by parents in response to child's needs for safety and security. And that can start to build this internal repertoire of thought behaviors. Internal working models allow people to make predictions about how the self and significant others will behave within relationships. And as mentioned, with the attachment styles, there are at least 3 different insecure attachment styles and at least one main secure attachment style. Childhood attachment influences adult attachment styles. Childhood attachment styles are governed by the way children behave in relationships with their parents. In later life, influences the way the individuals conduct relationships with other important people, especially romantic partners. So we'll do a quick review, because we have chatted about this before, about the 4 attachment styles. Attachment styles may be classified based on whether the internal working model of the self and others is positive or negative, and whether there are high or low levels of anxiety and avoidance. So the first and most important attachment style is secure attachment. And this is where securely attached infants and adults react to their parents and their romantic partners as if they believe they will be there to support them when needed. Sensitive parenting is important for secure attachment. Parenting that is sensitive to the child's needs plays a far greater role in the development of attachment security than genetic or temperamental factors, and that's an important one. Parents with a secure attachment style are more likely to provide sensitive parenting, low stress, high support. Parenting quality is also dependent on stresses and support present in the parent's environment. So you can imagine if you have parents who are more highly stressed based on the environment in which they live in, maybe one is missing in the job and they need 2 jobs. Maybe there's all sorts of reasons. Therefore, insecure attachment is a potential for some families. And there are 3. Insecurely attached infants and adults react to their parents and romantic partners as if they believe they cannot be depended on for support when needed. Avoidant attachment. Infants show avoidant attachment are least distressed by their mother's departure. So when mom leaves, they don't seem to get upset. They don't cry. They don't barely notice. They play by themselves without fuss and when their parent returns, they don't really pay attention. Adults and their romantic partners assume that their partners will be there for them just as their parents were not. So they don't think that's going to happen. And so when you're in that same part and you're an adult, you just don't think that the people who were there for you are really going to be there for you. Anxious attachment. Infants in this style badly want to be closer in proximity to their parents and to comfort them. Essentially, anxious attachment leaves the infant adult viewing themselves negatively and the parent and the child more positively. The disorganized or avoidant fearful attachment, most infants and adults will, with this insecure attachment style, tend to be either anxious, very clingy, or avoidant, very sulky. A limited number with fluctuate between the two. The result is a strong need for closeness, which leads to clingy, needy behavior and is also an avoidance to intimacy due to the fear of abandonment. So our levels of attachment can influence our relationships to a profound way, depending upon how well we interact with our parents and our parents are able to support and to provide safety and security. Now, the 3 or 4 terms that we touched on in the intro: empathy, altruism, kindness, and volunteering. And we'll start with empathy. Now, it's a term no doubt you've heard. Empathy is the capacity to develop intellectual appreciation, so using our head to think about another perspective, and emotional awareness, so not just the thinking, but also the feeling of bodily feelings of the experience of another person. So let me repeat that because I went through that kind of choppy. So it's the capacity to develop our thinking and emotional awareness of the body feelings of the experiences of another person. Now, it has 3 components. Cognitive component, which is your thinking. Cognitive is thinking. So this is the predicting that a child who has fallen and hurt themselves is in pain, will cry, and call for their mother. The emotional component, well, feeling an urge to comfort a child who has fallen and hurt themselves. The physiological component, flinching when watching another person being hit or smiling when another smiles. So evolution of empathy, well, it doesn't have a history. Well, empathy evolved because it had major survival benefits for humans, notably bonding individuals to each other, especially mothers to children. Now, determinants of empathy, what factors contribute to the development of empathy? Well, they include secure parent-child attachment. We've reviewed that a couple of places. Family cohesion. That becomes very important. Authoritative parenting style. Now, that's a misnomer. It sounds more aggressive or more negative, perhaps. But an authoritative parenting style is characterized by high warmth and moderate control, letting kids make some decisions for themselves and rewarding them. Some of the effects of empathy, well, positive outcomes in psychotherapy from empathy. When therapists can empathize, can produce with a patient some more positive outcomes, and medical practices. Now, there is such a thing as empathy deficits, and healthcare professionals develop empathy deficits following a sustained level of high contact with distressed patients where empathy is required, and when they're provided with insufficient support. It's often also known as compassion fatigue. Altruism. Now, altruism is the intention to improve another person's situation for that reason alone, at a cost to the oneself and without there's any expectation that I'm going to get a reward. Empathy may motivate altruistic pro-social behavior. Now, again, evolutionarily, where did Altruism evolved because it enhanced the survival of groups of humans. Determinants of altruism, well, the factors that contribute to altruism include a secure parent-child attachment. That seems to be a common thread in successful and good relationships. Again, we're characterized by family cohesion, authoritative parenting style, and parents monitoring a child's behavior and acting as an altruistic role model. Higher parental education and income is usually at role here, and exposure to pro-social role models in peer groups and the media. Now, there is another term that's connected. It's pathological altruism may lead to burnout in helping professions, codependency in supporting addictions in family members, violent behavior towards outgroups, to altruistically help an in-group. Now, kindness. We all probably understand kindness, I would expect. One of the things we're going to touch on here is the random acts of kindness which enhance donors' well-being. Sonia Lybromsky found that the acts of kindness increases well-being, the number of acts. That's one of the contributing factors to getting the benefit is the number of acts, the size of the acts, and the variety of acts, and the acts are important. Consider trying box 8.6 in your text. Let's look at these. Number and time frame. This is through the acts of kindness. The number of acts of kindness must be high enough within a short time frame so we see ourselves as being kinder than usual. That would be like 5 acts of kindness in a day had a bigger impact on well-being than 5 acts of kindness over a week. Then we can look at variety. A wider variety of different types of acts of kindness lead to greater well-being than repeating the same act. Size of the act of kindness? Well, larger acts of kindness. For example, regularly helping a disadvantaged child to learn to read, up to a point, may boost well-being more than smaller acts. For example, lending someone your bicycle. Pay it forward effects. Acts of kindness create better communities by inspiring others to carry out acts of kindness. Sarah Pressman asked 83 individuals to perform random acts of kindness for other people in the community for 90 minutes. After being the recipient of such acts of kindness, 39% said they had spontaneously paid it forward by doing a random act of kindness for others. It's powerful. The effect is powerful. Volunteerism. Volunteering involves making a commitment over a period of time to engage in sustained acts of kindness and well-being. Volunteering improves health and well-being at stages of life, in adolescence, less depression, less alcohol and drug use, and less delinquency, fewer intended pregnancies, fewer school problems, very positive results. In older adults, more positive mood, more physical activity, more longevity. In fact, out of the population, it's probably people over 60 who volunteer more than any other group. Mind you, they have more free time. Volunteering improves the well-being because it involves viewing others more positively and deserving of help. It also benefits by receiving gratitude from those we help, appreciating our own good fortune, social comparison, enhancing our self-image as compassionate and altruistic, learning new skills, developing supportive relationships with other volunteers, and developing meaning and purpose in life. volunteering can have a profound impact, a very profound impact on one's quality of life. So in looking at that, the meaning of life, well, relationships can give meaning to life. It can give purpose and direction. Meaning in life may mediate the relationship between relationships and well-being. Researcher Michael Steger invited participants to take photographs of things that made their lives meaningful, and asked them to explain why the item in their photographs contributed to their meaning in life. And he found that the relationships were the primary source of meaning in life for 90% of participants. Explanations for why relationships gave life meaning were classified into 3 categories, providing love, care, support, understanding, guidance, encouragement, inspiration, values, a reason to live, a context for self-development, and a context for having fun together. Now, we've touched on a number of things already, and I'm going to introduce what we're going to label as active constructive responding. And this is where the term capitalization is entering into things. Capitalization is telling others good news. By telling others about our good fortune, we are making the most of or we're capitalizing on our positive experiences. When others respond to our good news with enthusiasm, this increases our well-being. Shelley Gable found that there are 4 ways of responding when another tells you good news. The response is active or passive, constructive or destructive. Active constructive responding is the only type of response that increases well-being and strengthens relationships. Now, another term we touched on in the intro that we'll get into now is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness and, let's not go down this path, but revenge. Humans have evolved to engage in both revenge and forgiveness in response to dealing with situations involving being threatened or harmed. Revenge acts as a deterrent against further transgressions. Forgiveness, on the other hand, maintains the relationship between the victim and the transgressors by preventing the tit-for-tat reprisals and turning conflict into cooperation. Research findings about forgiveness show many benefits of personality traits and forgiveness. Forgiving people scores high on measures of empathy, perspective taking, emotional stability, agreeableness, secure adult attachment style, and religiosity. Alternatively, forgiving people scores low on measures of rumination about transgressions, anger, depression. Research into situational factors in forgiveness that we find that people find it easier to forgive transgressions that are less dangerous, entail fewer negative consequences for which the aggressor apologizes, and it occurs in close, satisfying, committed relationships. Everett Worthington proposed that there is a distinction that can be made in forgiveness, that is between decisional and emotional forgiveness. Decisional forgiveness, a personal decision is made to forgive the transgressor, but not to seek revenge and make relationship as good as it was before the offense. It is the stepping stone to emotional forgiveness. Emotional forgiveness, emotional empathy for the transgressor is experienced, and as a result, less feelings towards them occur. This is the end of part 1 on relationships. In part 2, we're going to explore the couple and the parent-child relationship. Please give some of the activities a try. You may be surprised at the outcomes for you. We'll see you in part 2, everybody. Good luck. Bye now.